back in the count. The swing arm now coming back as our countdown continues.
Good afternoon, everybody, and happy Sunday. If you've been watching the Brick Something News lately, I have been gone for a little bit and haven't been doing this live because I am somewhere else. I am on the other side of the planet in Japan, and we are through the power of the internet and time machines. So I'm here today, though, with someone who I admire quite a bit, and I'm hoping you're not muted.
I unmuted myself.
Oh, okay, good. I was going to say, hold on, he's muted. Jay Glatfelter of Geek.Dad.Life. What's going on, Jay?
Hello. Thank you for having me. Always enjoy hanging out with you, whether it's on your channel or my channel. I always enjoy the conversation. You're one of my favorite people on the YouTubes.
Hey, man, appreciate that.
Can I say that some of the best takes on the YouTubes?
Oh, all right. Fair enough.
I'll stand by it. I'll stand by it.
I appreciate that. And I'm a bit of a fan. And you know,
you.
I'm a fan of the channel for sure, but I'm a fan of this concept. I will tell you, like, I can connect with the idea of being a geek, of being a dad and trying desperately to have some control over life. So,
which we quickly learn, like we don't, we just kind of try our best.
For real though, I really appreciate your channel. You have such a fun, fresh take on toys and generally like super positive. The community that you've sort of built around has been one that I've like come up through and met a lot of great friends through. The Discord's great, all of that stuff. I feel like we've actually all been through some good times and bad times. I feel like, man, we went through the great debate together.
Oh,
we went through the Wondar experience.
Oh,
man,
yeah. It's kind of wild, right? Like,
yeah. At the end of the day, it's all about like toys, having fun, talking memories, and while also just like tripping out on all the toys that like keep coming our way.
It's somehow like geek culture becoming, I don't know, monetizable by the powers that be, for better or worse, is something that at least being a geek is enjoyable, that things that we could tap into are plentiful because, you know, it wasn't that way when we were, you know, coming up as younger geeks.
What's funny is that I feel like companies and corporations have tried to kind of like monetize the stuff we're into, but when we were growing up, like they did so in the most awkward and feeble kind of ways. We're like, hey kids, check this out. You like Star Wars? Check out this other thing that's not Star Wars at all. Right? In the 90s, like extreme stuff. It's like extreme juice commercials and extreme clothing. And some of us were kind of like eye rolling. The difference now is you and I and our peers, they're the ones who are like either running or working for these companies now. So the stuff we're getting is like legit.
Exactly.
Right? Like when they sell us stuff, they're selling us the good stuff.
Giving them good dopamine hits.
Yeah, because they've tasted the product before. But that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. But for the uninitiated or just be, you know, folks on replay, there is this business down here that's coming across. So I do have this URL that you can go to, bit.ly/bricksomethingnews, capital B, capital S, capital news. And that'll take you to a document that'll show you all the stuff that we're talking about, all the links directly if you want to look at it yourself. And then by Jay, there's a QR code, like super fancy, and you like are watching and then you take out your phone. You can use that too. It'll take you there. Unfortunately, this is a live premiere, so Thanos likely won't, or maybe he will. If you do, Thanos, thank you for doing that while it's premiering because I'm probably sleeping. So let's go ahead and go on. Let's go back to the topic. Since I have you here today, as we've discussed, you've built this great community and it's you do a lot around Geek.Dad.Life. Can you tell us a little bit about the kinds of toys that you tend to collect and or talk about on Toy Geeks?
You know, one of the taglines that I've come up with, chasing the 80s and 90s nostalgic passions of a geek dad or something like that.
Nice.
One of the taglines. But what's kind of funny is I've kind of always just been a nostalgic person, even when I was a kid. You know, I was like, you know, 7, I was like, God, you know, this crap on TV today. Remember real Ghostbusters? That was way better, or whatever.
Right.
I've always kind of tried to hold on to my memories and kind of carry them with me. And so for me, part of the joy of collecting and finding things is kind of tapping into moments from my childhood. Just, and the fact that I've been a toy collector since, you know, the mid 90s, and then I was just a kid buying toys before that, like it has kind of followed me and has marked just about every chapter of my life. So just the action in and of itself is somehow like tapping back into the core of who I am. It's satisfying and fulfilling in that way. So I generally do skew more into things and properties that I've always loved. Not so much I'm trying to recapture my youth or try to recapture a thing that 20 years went by and now I want to go relive it. It's just always kind of been a constant thing that I've loved continuously. And so, and there's just different phases of that. Like for Ghostbusters, you know, it's when I was a kid just playing with the toys, and I was like, okay, I lost a lot of the toys. I was trying to get them back in the 90s, you know, early days eBay. And then the Extreme Ghostbusters cartoon coming out and buying those. And then NECA doing Ghostbusters toys in the early 2000s. Then Mattel doing stuff in the late 2000s, early 2010s. And then now what Hasbro has been doing. So it's just kind of this continuous thing since I've been born. And same thing I say about Star Wars. Same thing I could say about Transformers. I mean, any of these things.
MOTU, right?
Yeah. And so it's nostalgic, but it's not like the, I guess maybe the stereotypical nostalgia. It's kind of just continually reconnecting with some core elements to things that I love.
Yeah, nostalgia, I think sometimes does get it almost sounded like you were towards the end, like, oh, nostalgia, but not this. And I think there is this interesting moment where sometimes people like kind of like poo-poo nostalgia. And I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think the way you described it, like everything you said completely resonated with me. It's beautiful, especially when the toys and the sort of geek stuff in general imprints on us like so deeply. And for many of us, it became such a core part of who we are.
Yeah.
Like I can't remember a time when like, I got into music and other things and was hardcore into that stuff.
Yeah.
But it was still like, yeah, dude, I love Star Wars. Yeah, I love G.I. Joe. Yeah, I love reading comic books. So nostalgia is not bad. And, you know, here's this definition: a strong desire or sentimental yearning for the happiness of a former place or time in one's life. Not a bad thing at all.
Well, I was just, but it kind of, I feel like for myself, recent events in the world where people are like, we should go back to how things were in the 50s or whatever. Like those type of sentiments.
Yes.
Like kind of show the slippery slope of nostalgia. And so I think the concerns that and again, I don't want to say it's bad because so much of what I love is kind of the things that, you know, that kind of go back to, that have been with me forever. And but I think it's just kind of understanding that is good, but it's good to evolve too.
Right.
Like finding that balance between the two.
Balance, all things in balance. Absolutely. We can love the things we want, but we can also embrace new things and be open to them. Yeah. And it's funny, we're like here, like waxing philosophical about toys, but unfortunately, ongoing, there's always somebody in the toy community who's mad about something, right?
Exactly.
They bring up something nostalgic, like here's this new toy from this thing that you love, and then you're like, it's not as good as I remember it, or
right?
Why didn't they do this? Oh, too expensive, or whatever it is, right? Yeah. And so I was hoping that you and I could talk about, like, let's talk a little bit about that balance today as we kind of look at some of the things and just talk toys. But also like demonstrate to folks that like, it's okay. All of these things can exist. The stuff from our childhood that we love, the new versions of the stuff that might be a little bit different, as well as the brand new things that might have some connection to something we like, or like might be completely on the new. That's what I'm thinking. So
I love that.
All right, let's start off with something. You mentioned it already, but I know one of your biggest loves is this, right? Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters fans, I feel like, should be really happy at this time. There's a lot going on, and I would use the word should be happy right now. I was one of those little kids who was around when that movie came out, and I had to get the T-shirt. I had the little vinyl. I think I must have it still, the 7-inch or what do we call
40,
them?
45.
Yeah, yeah. Loved everything about Ghostbusters, and so but I never really got into the toys. So nostalgic for the brand, and just for whatever reason, I think maybe there's a combination of my parents being like, you collect these, you're not getting new things. And then maybe I was, by the time like the good stuff came out, meaning the toys from the cartoon, I was a little bit older at that point.
Yeah, because that's like 87, really, the toy. And then really like 87, 88, that the show and the toys really hit their high mark.
I definitely appreciated Real Ghostbusters because I thought they could just do a lot more fun stuff than the movies ever did, and it continued, right? So I appreciated it at that time. So let's go to Ghostbusters right now. And so this is just on Hasbro Pulse, just like the Ghostbusters page. And I'm just doing a quick scroll through, and it's not even like one thing. It's a variety of things that are available to Ghostbusters fans right now, right? So whether you're talking about the high-end, expensive, like role play stuff like this, the PKE meter, and you've got this stuff that is like directly tying back to, if you were a fan of those toys, we're re-releasing versions of those toys. You've got this beautiful little like model of an Ecto one. And then on top of that, they're like, well, you know, let's go way back and let's do this, which I think is one of the newer developments. What are you thinking right now about this, where this, I guess, IP is at?
I think it's at a crossroads. It was dormant for so long because Bill Murray, you know, had you know, axe rights essentially to doing any kind of movie. It took Harold Ramis dying essentially for him to sign off on approving new Ghostbusters content. So you know, you had the Answer the Call film, the 2016 film that was stupid divisive or divisive, whatever. Even though I'm one of the people that enjoyed that movie and I get crap for that.
Same here. Loved it.
You kind of went back like, okay, scrap that. Let's just go back to, you know, Member Berries, the movie, you know, for the Afterlife. And then you have this most recent one. And the movies have done okay, not great. You know, you had a lot of stuff for Afterlife, but then it kind of got jerked around with COVID and the release dates, and toys got released at weird times. But then on this past one, I think you had a really fun movie that I think is done well enough. It's like $200 million worldwide or something on a $100 million budget. But the toys just weren't there, right? And so you have people upset about that, but you're still getting stuff in a world where we didn't have any Ghostbuster stuff for years and years and years. We got a lot of stuff. So, and we got a HasLab coming out that I think everyone should be really excited about. So it's interesting. It's an interesting time. And then you have Mondo doing Ghostbusters, Real Ghostbusters. I think a lot of us people that are diehard Real Ghostbusters fans have been wanting forever. So yeah, it's kind of a weird spot where we're getting things we want, but the future of the franchise in general is a little unsure.
Absolutely. I agree. It is in a weird spot. And it's funny, you and I have had that conversation about other brands, right? Over on your channel, we're talking about Star Wars, and that was my
Star Wars
thing.
too. Star Wars is in a weird
weird spot. Well, so this, to me, this item in particular was like an awesome, like fun reveal, but then also like weird in a cool way. Like, oh, we're going back to O-rings, and of like all the things we could potentially go back to in terms of O-rings. Like, this is Hasbro doing this. Hasbro, who like has a very successful G.I. Joe line right now, who for my money, like that ruled O-rings, like that defined O-rings for me as a kid. But they're going, the first thing that they're going back to with O-ring officially is this. I'm curious what you thought of this, and like, what do you think the reception is to this idea?
Well, weirdly lukewarm, including to myself. Like, I haven't bought this set yet. I haven't.
Okay.
And I think I will, because it's $44. That's really good for 4 O-ring figures, I think. But it is this weird little space that it's in that we wanted Hasbro to do O-ring G.I. Joes, but they didn't, or they kind of gave up on it. This is really cool. This is like what we would expect them to do in 1984, right? If a toy company had it, maybe this is what they would do.
Yep.
And they look pretty decent. And the thing is so funny is I one of the first things I did on the internet was create a website dedicated to Ghostbusters toys. And back then, a lot of people customized G.I. Joe Ghostbuster figures.
Yep.
And I had like pictures I would post them on my website and stuff like that of G.I. Joe customs to be Ghostbusters. So I feel like there's a lot of baked in desire and demand for it. But there's just something about it like, okay, but you didn't really generate excitement for your IP, Hasbro. And is this all it's going to be? And is this enough to be like, oh, this is, if it was like step one in a phase of a whole bunch of things, then I think we would be more excited. But to be honest, I think the reason why I'm not like over the moon is we keep getting the 4 dudes in tan suits.
Right.
And we got that in Mego. We got that in Plasma series. We got that in the kid line. We got that in the 12-inch figures. But they don't really do anything beyond that. And it's just kind of, it doesn't inspire what we love about toys, which is like getting all these crazy diverse colors and shapes and sizes and things that feel toyetic. And as much as I love original Ghostbusters, it's just 4 dudes in tan suits. You can only do that so much before it gets a little boring.
All signs point to like, this is kind of a one-off, like fun, kitschy, kind of like, isn't this cool?
Yeah.
And I gotta say though, this is pretty damn cool.
Exactly.
Like,
it's great for that. You know?
Yeah.
But it's just, is this weird thing that collectors that we're doing right now are just like, listen, this is like a one-night stand, this is a fling. Like I want a long-term commitment, baby. I want 5 years. I want 6 seasons in a movie. Okay. I want to really commit.
It's so true. We're finicky though, because then the second they do that, then you hear what we hear about Jed. Oh man, slow down. It's too much. I can't, like, dude, man.
In short, you can't make geeks happy. That should be your answer. Just do what you want to do, and then we'll have to deal with it.
I will just say in passing though that the sculpts on these, and I know these are I'm assuming renders. Yeah,
they look rendery, but yeah.
But God, the overall look of them, of blending that sort of like simplified 3.75 look with more realistic stuff, I really, really like where these are at. Hopefully they can reproduce something like this. Even like for me, again, nostalgia, that little screw right there like makes me weirdly excited. Like, ooh, I remember that. But to your point, I too wish that they would have just committed and said, we're doing O-rings and we're doing a full-on O-ring line. Expect ghosts for O-rings, expect plate, all of that. But we know that's not. Well, do we know that?
We don't know for sure. We don't know for sure.
Fair enough.
Again, I just think track record is this is probably it. But who knows? Maybe these things sell so well and they're still available, so maybe they haven't. That that they're like, okay, we can go do more things.
Right.
And it's just Hasbro's just kind of in a weird place in general with their toy offerings.
Everybody's in a weird place, Jay. Why is everybody in such a weird place?
It's just, I don't know. Election year, maybe. I don't know. We don't know what's gonna happen.
Oh, we got real weird there. But yes, no, 100%. Remember,
anything can happen.
I'm in Japan right now, IRL.
Oh, you're right. You don't have to care about it. You're out of our mess. You're great.
I'm enjoying it before the fall. But just looking at these renders, like these are really cool. Like that little trap, and
I love that they did Peter with the untucked pants. That's important to his character.
That's they're paying attention. So they showed it with this Ecto-1. And can you clarify something? There's limited compatibility. I've heard different things. So they're here sitting, but what's the limited compatibility piece?
Well, they say it can only fit 2 figures. So when they did the engineering, they could only fit the 2 figures in the front, so you can't fit the figures in the back.
Okay, got it.
It's a great Ecto-1. And I think if we didn't know this was coming, I think easy buy, but it's just like, I know, actually we don't know for sure, but we have to assume we got a 6-inch Ecto-1 coming out, because this Otherwise, we would maybe think it could be this scale. It's like, okay, we already did this scale, so it's got to be bigger, and it's got to be 6-inch scale.
For those who aren't familiar, that sticker that you just held up was a teaser that was going out for the upcoming HasLab, correct?
Yes.
And so are we assuming that that's going to be the one immediately following the Star Wars one happening right now, or we don't know when?
They said fall. They have confirmed fall.
Got it.
That's all they confirmed is this sticker with it's the No-Ghost logo, but it's a tire, and then HasLab has the the classic 59 caddy fins.
But then if they do that, obviously, then just got to have people. Is that kind of what the conversation is right now?
Well, you already have Plasma Series figures, right? You already have the 84 guys done.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
So those will work. Okay.
Yeah. So then what you could use, and again, this is all speculation.
And I know I get speculation. It's also me not following closely because I haven't been paying attention, but that makes sense. They're existing figures, but then also potentially
you could round out the thing, right? So if there's not enough demand to keep Plasma Series going, which is the 6-inch scale Ghostbusters line. Again, I don't know that either. But if that's the case, you could use this to kind of round out the characters you haven't gotten yet. Maybe give us Slimer. Maybe give us some other ghosts. Maybe give us Janine. Maybe give us like a different Louis Tully. Maybe give us the 4 GBs in Ghostbusters 2 uniforms. Whatever it is, this vehicle could do that. It could also have an Ecto-1A conversion, so it looks like the Ghostbusters 2 look for the vehicle. Like, there's a lot of ways you could use a HasLab to kind of go all out.
And all signs point to, as you pointed out in that sticker, it's like got the Chevy logo, all of those things on the tire. It's a vehicle, likely. Yeah. This will be the first time that's not a role-playing thing.
Could, but again, why would you tease it?
No, it'd be stupid. It would be really stupid.
It would be, I guess, a good move by Hasbro to do.
It'd be guaranteed to piss people off. No, I don't think that's what Hasbro needs right now. Okay,
it's an Ecto-1 license plate because that goes on the Ecto-1. It's a replica.
Full scale, and
it's a 1/1 scale light bar for the top of your car,
and the tiers are like the registration tags. Okay, great. So,
oh my god, holy crap, what if it is that? What if it's like a car conversion kit? So it's still props, so you get like a light bar, big Ghostbuster stickers for your door, and Ecto-1 plate. Oh my god.
Oh man,
I hope it's not that.
Yeah. The funny thing is, though, when they have been doing these HasLabs, Hasbro has been the only game in town. And as I know from this website, Geek.Dad.Life.com, you covered in April that they revealed that, hey, there's someone other than Hasbro who's going to take hold of the property and make toys. Yeah. You want to tell folks what this was about?
Mondo Toys is making a run at making real Ghostbusters toys, right? And I think their intent is to try to do 6-inch figures in a world where Hasbro isn't quite going for it for whatever reason, maybe a justifiable business reason. Mondo has been granted permission to try and take a run at this, so the potential is huge, I think, for Ghostbusters fans. We know who's doing the sculpting, which is Alex Brewer, which really him sharing those renders and the huge reaction to those renders.
And I need to stress, because people get confused, but these were Alex's fan art. Like,
on his own.
Was totally not with any sort of like foresight that like, we're going after this brand or that it could ever happen. This is just him like, hey, what if we took the real Ghostbusters and kind of did them in 2024?
Yep.
And they're dope. Like,
so
it's the sculpts are gorgeous, like translating the cartoon stuff. And then for me, this is what excites me the most about now that we know that Mondo's doing it, is these guys, the Ghosts, Mondo's art team, and like their sculptors, like they know how to do creatures, and done in this animated dynamic style. They know that. Like they can do it. They can create all sorts of original stuff. Like, as far as I'm concerned, give me the new whatever ghosts that these guys are battling with. And we know they've said we're not going to use these.
No, I think he said that they're even better than these, apparently. Like the articulation designs and stuff that he's done, I think are better than what's pictured here. Right. And I think the other thing too to remember is these are just fan art, so like they can't play in Hasbro's water, which is they own the rights to these ghosts because these are Kenner ghosts. These aren't cartoon show Ghost. But still, like there's so many ghosts from the animated series that never got turned into toys. I think that's the promise of this toy line, is that the animated series, which, you know, we had James E. Talk, who wrote the book on MOTU, or at least He-Man and She-Ra animated series, on our Toy Geeks podcast, and he said, you know, my favorite's MOTU, but the best animated series of the 80s is Real Ghostbusters. And you know, I'm biased because it's my favorite property, but I it's, out of all of the things I loved watching as a kid, it's the one I can watch now and still like enjoy fully, not have to have some type of like lens to be like, well, you know, it was for kids, it's fine.
No,
or,
yeah, I 100% agree.
But the thing is we haven't gotten a lot of toy versions of so many great characters that were in that show. And I think that's the thing that's exciting about this for people.
Absolutely. So Ghostbusters, yeah, there's the nostalgia, but then there's this notion of let's do something that hasn't been done before. So that's what I love. For me, that's my sweet spot. It's like, definitely bring me back to those old places, remind me of those things, but do it in a way of like give me something that I didn't have. Real Ghostbusters, in addition to the ghost things, there was a moment in that Real Ghostbusters cartoon that has stuck with me forever, and that's this one. And I love that they went beyond ghosts.
Will likely come from the north. Get the prisoners up here. The time has come to help us or die.
Obviously, you're familiar with this, right? But they went with monsters, right? Like not ghosts, physical monsters.
This is where they go into a town, right? Then it basically... what was the name of the episode again?
It was like Lupusville or something.
Yes, welcome to Lupusville. They all turn into like Dracula's at the end of the day, right?
But there's a twist. There are werewolves too, right? Lupus being the wolf.
Yes.
They're getting attacked by the vampires, and I love just the idea of the Ghostbusters. Like, oh, this is a new thing, but then they're dealing with werewolves. This is definitely my jam. Like, I love the idea of ghosts. I love creatures. I love the whole Universal Monsters thing, and I love when Real Ghostbusters would play with that and have fun with it. So my particular favorite moment was this notion of like, okay, now we're in a town that has vampires and werewolves fighting, and then they get to this moment where they realize, oh crap, when a vampire bites you, you turn into a vampire. But wait, when a wolf bites you, you get the curse and you become a werewolf. You see the sort of end sequence of this fight, and they're looking back and they're having vampires turn to werewolves and werewolves turn to vampires. And I was in love, right? They took the concept. So the notion of nostalgia, by this time, the movie had been out. I was a little bit older.
Yeah.
But I didn't let that cloud me to go like, oh, they didn't fight vampires, or, you know what I mean? It was just like, yes, take the basic concept that I love and bring it to new places that I can get excited about, which is kind of the theme of what I'm hoping we can cover today. Let's bring it to the new. I'm taking us to this Fresh Monkey Fiction place because Fresh Monkey Fiction, newer kid on the block in terms of making toys, they are coming out with a line called Monster Force, Operation Monster Force, which they announced like over a year ago. You can kind of see some of the figures here, but it's very much in line with what we just saw, right? This notion of like, what if werewolves were real? Vampires are real. Other sort of like supernatural creatures and monsters are real. But now we're going to mash it up with like a military force, almost like a G.I. Joe type thing. So again, like familiar touchstones.
Yeah.
Like stuff I love, but in a new context for 2024. And I'm just like, this is some cool stuff. So the basic concept is they're fighting this pharaoh who is like this big, you know, existential threat. So we need something that can actually, you know, stand up to him. So you've got this character here who's sort of the main protagonist, who is a descendant of Van Helsing, who now has this, like, how do we defeat this pharaoh guy? Well, I'm going to go against my family's way and have to team up with another powerful force, Dracula. A couple of weeks ago, they showed sort of the progress, and they're definitely like, they're still keying it in. I think this version of Dracula looks actually much better than the original prototypes, in my opinion. The suit looks better. He just looks a little bit more both regal. Like, look at that pose.
Yeah, looks great.
brand new toys. Like, yes, there's touchstones from, you know, if you're nostalgic about vampires in general, or G.I. Joe, maybe. I think that looks great. Here's that protagonist. What is his name? Declan Van Helsing. Relatively recently now, a week ago, they showed these things, which are called the Order of the Crimson Moon, which actually is like a prequel to their Operation Monster Force lore. One of the factions that you fight, these guys are actually called, what is it? The Sleepwalker Crimson Moon Division. This stuff takes place in the 1970s.
All right.
Where there was an actual cult called the Order of the Crimson Moon. But they were messing with, lo and behold, vampires. And again, real Ghostbusters, like, what if werewolves turned into zombies? Like, that's some cool stuff. And
absolutely.
Like, my brain that was raised on Universal Monsters and real Ghostbusters looks at this and goes, it's familiar, but it's new and exciting. Plus, look at that, man. That's a, what's his name? Billy Bob Thornton. That's a damn good Billy Bob Thornton sculpt. Archer.
Mashed potatoes.
What we later found out as they announced these figures, if you're looking at the red and black and you're like, oh, that dude reminds me of that old Palatoy Action Force character, that you can switch heads, and they're doing something pretty gray area, you know, sneaky, by giving you alt heads that if you put them onto another figure, you can totally recreate some of those classic Palatoy Action Force figures.
Yeah.
So again, leaning on the nostalgia for those familiar, but in a new package. What are you thinking about what Fresh Monkey Fiction's doing with these
I
lines?
love the idea. I really do. I think for me personally, what the piece that's missing on these, that other toy lines like Saurosauric Warriors, these guys, or Animal Warriors of the Kingdom, is they just it's a little too real world. It's a little too Christopher Nolan for me.
Gotcha. Yep.
In that I want a little bit more vibrancy and colors and just something that kind of stimulates my imagination more. But everyone's different. So like for some people, this will stimulate your imagination. But for me, it's just like, God, I want like him to look like Cable or something. I want like all these different colors, light blue and orange and metal and, you know, like, but that's just me. But like, that's the thing that kind of gets me going, is just like it's something I think, you know, Animal Wars, like every character is vibrant and just, you know, has purples or blues or reds or pinks or whatever. Like, it's just like, it really just like, God, I just want to like rock out with this guy. And it's again, this looks great.
Yeah.
But it's so muted. It just doesn't get me feeling, but that's just me.
Yeah. And that's beautiful. Cause like, we shouldn't be buying all the toys. There's no way you can, and we shouldn't be. That's like just too much. But it is a nice, healthy place where there's such a variety that you can look at this and you're like, man, that's the new hotness. It's cool, but it's not for me. And actually not feel bad, because right around the corner, there's this other new hotness that will do exactly what you said. Everything you just showed me is like within the last couple of years too.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, some, like this, like this is what gets me going.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
You know, Legends of Dragonor.
Absolutely.
Stuff.
Yeah. Again, to the things that we were talking about earlier, like, why be mad, people? Like,
Oh,
let other people enjoy.
Absolutely.
That's the thing that trips me out. Because like you just said, like, oh, I don't, this doesn't get me. It's a little great. I hear you. Everything you said is actually factually accurate. Like, it's muted. It's very much the Christopher Nolan thing. It's got the dark edge, right? It's very serious and grim.
It's like,
if
we're talking in how you see it in the real world or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And if I didn't, that's fine. If it doesn't float my boat, that's fine. There's other things I can be into. And it was just like, it's cool. It's all good. Unfortunately, some people, you know, go beyond that.
That's the thing with geek culture, right? And it's not just toys. We know this is of movies, everything else, right?
Yep.
We talked about the 2016 Ghostbusters movie earlier.
Yep. Exactly.
It's like, if you don't like it, that's fine. You still have your Ghostbusters movies. They didn't go anywhere. All
right. Let's shift a little bit back to sort of more of the stuff that we know, more familiar, quote unquote, if we will, nostalgia. What if Scareglow had a horse, right? And to me, that's such a cool thing that Mondo is doing. If you're not familiar, Mondo, for their 1/6 12-inch Masters of the Universe line, which is amazing, they announced they're doing Scareglow, but then they said, but we're also giving him a steed. Initially, it was called Nightmare. Now it's Scaremare. And we've seen some of these things. Shout out to Toy Habits. They've shown these a little bit more recently, teasing sort of painted prototype here. And like this thing's going to have all sorts of fun details.
Oh, yeah.
Almost like monster, zombie, ghoul, horse, green underneath. Mondo knows what they're doing. They understand art. They understand design. These things need to look good in all sorts of angles and lights. The silhouette needs to grab you.
Mondo pisses me off though, because I don't have room and don't have the money, but everything looks so good. Their turtle stuff right now is the toughest thing, where I really, really want it.
Yep.
No space, really not budget for it, but god dang. And this too, where it's like, this is going to be expensive and it's definitely a space killer. And that's probably why I won't get it, but god, it's just, this looks so good.
These guys are, they're art. It's like truly is
they're
they're walking that line, right? They'll do like, here's a James Groman thing. It's limited edition. It's meant to sort of like almost like be treated in value like art. These are collector pieces.
The lane Mondo has to play in, you have to realize that not only do they have to, because it's a higher scale quality, they're going to charge more, but also to get to play with these licenses that other toy companies have, bigger toy companies, which are much bigger budgets and much better lawyers. Yeah. They also have to price it certain ways because that's what they make them do. Like it's not like, I'm sure Ghostbusters, they're going to try and give us the best value, whatever they can do. But I'm sure I don't know. I'm not in the boardrooms or whatever, but I'm sure Hasbro, someone's like, well, you can play, but you're going to have to charge this much, blah, blah, blah. Like, give all these freaking hoops you got to jump through, to play the game, So,
and on top of that, absolutely. And on top of that, these are not meant for mass market consumption in the same way that stuff, say, like at retail is. You and I are both musicians, right? It's a difference of like, I don't know, Taylor Swift producing like crap ton of product that they know like is very marketable and still sell it all out versus like some indie, like, we're going to do 12-minute instrumental songs, right? And it's going to meander and there's never going to be a chorus. Like that's what Mondo is. And so they're not going to be able to produce things in the same way, and they can't count on them selling in the same numbers. So it's just going to be expensive. That said, this stuff, like they're clearly like
these sketches. I got to do, I was the moderator for the panel that reviewed these schedules. These sketches, and Emiliano, the gentleman who, this is his toy line, Legends of Dragonor, he does the designs for all the MOTU stuff for Mondo. I mean, he's been designing MOTU stuff since 2000X days, so he gets MOTU better than most in terms of toy design and stuff like that. And yeah, I think bringing something wholly new, but somehow still captures everything that makes Scareglow one of the best, like one of the rarest, but one of the coolest. It's just green and purple. It works so well. Joker, Beetlejuice, green and purple are my favorite colors. God dang, it's just so good.
And
showing these, because this is just I've been able to be like, I don't need it. But every time I look at it, I'm like, God, I need it. I want it so bad.
Okay, I'll go through them. But how about the character that'll be on it? And they also are redesigning a classic character that we all know and love, and we've had several iterations, right? Whether it was the vintage, the stuff in the mini comics, Revolution, classics, whatever, 2000X. There's been different versions, and yet they can still come with like a fresh take on it. So I think there are a lot of folks who are behind this. This prototype was just last weekend, I want to say, at Monsterpalooza. Beautiful stuff, lots of cool details, right? Just really like thinking about the character and then innovating.
That cape.
That cape.
It's got chains. It's a skeleton.
Real chains.
Man with chains like Jacob Marley. But freaking cool ass skeleton dude.
So that's that piece. And then again, to swing to the other side real quick, I've been recently talking a lot about this Brutal Realm stuff. Again, brand new line, brand new toy makers working with folks who've been in the game for a while, like people who have been worked on other toy lines, coming together in this thing called Brutal Realm. And I just like, I follow, again, there's like these touchstones of, hey, cool skeleton guy.
Yeah.
Hey, cool skeleton guy.
Yeah.
And we were just in MOTU, which is like, its brand is people who eat way too much protein and work out all the time constantly in
Have muscles for
ketosis.
show, but not for strength. You know the type.
Yeah. And so, and then skull heads, right? And so I don't know if you've seen these at all.
I have.
Okay. Yep.
They look fun. They look like a lot of fun. Kind of has,
They're
like a Danzig kind of
totally
thing going on.
mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mother.
You know, they're working on it. The Kickstarter should be happening soon. They've got Trevor 16 Shooter on it. So he's taking a picture of these, you know, like it's almost like they're just ready to, you know, take the world by storm, if you will, assuming again that people can be open to something that they didn't necessarily have a connection to as a child. What pulled me in, as folks know who watch the show, is like that they were showing us concepts of not only like this cool fantasy thing, which I'm totally into right now, but that they're like really trying to reach out to other sort of like cultures and folklore and mythology. And in this case, they're like pulling in a West African Yoruba character and working him into the line, working in the idea of the Khan and the Mongols into it. And I'm just like, yeah, dude, I love He-Man. I loved it when they worked in some other things, but in this way, it feels a little bit more, I don't know. I appreciate this stuff a little more being a person of color, but also like a person who loves history and other cultures that like, oh, this is cool. I feel like this is like subversively educational as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've got the Wakinian tribe. Like, to me, this is what would grab me, as well as like, oh, I could slot these in with my Mythic Legions guys. And like, it would be like this cool battle thing. Here's like the prototype. And again, I just wanted to show it in the context of us talking about old stuff and new stuff, hopefully trying to win more people over to the idea that like, hey man, toys are toys. What I'm nostalgic for is all those things: Ghostbusters, He-Man, G.I. Joe. But you know what I'm even more nostalgic for? Toys and action figures in general. And when they were just awesome. And that's what we're having now. So it's like,
that's what gets me, right? It's that ethereal thing of going to a toy store because we didn't have the internet. We didn't have toy talk shows every single week talking about the latest release. You just went into a KB Toys or Toys R Us or whatever, and you just saw a new toy on the shelf. And we did the same thing we do now. It's like, that's not my thing. Like, oh, look at this. This is kind of cool. I want to take this home, you know? Like, that's it. That is it. Whether you like it or you don't like it, I think that's the magic, right? And it's the same thing I did as a kid in a toy aisle that I do now. Where it's just like, I look at this like, oh, this is a cool toy. I kind of want this, you know? Like, that's it.
And you don't have to get this. So like, I get it if people are like, nah, man, I've spent too much. I'm a Masters Universe and this other thing. Like, I can't get this.
You make rules for yourself. I think that's great.
What it's funny is that people will say that. It's like, it's fine, dude. Like, no, you don't have to. Like, you can even just admire it and say that thing is awesome.
Yeah.
Period. Like, you know, there's like those Ghostbuster stuff. I think they're amazing. I'm actually not going to get the Ghostbuster stuff because of the weird constraints I have in my head with like modern clothing versus this weird sci-fi / sword and sandal thing. Doesn't mean that I don't love it and like want to see it succeed and like I'm hyped that it exists. So anyway, this is the Brutal Realm stuff. Oh yeah. And so the last couple of weeks that those guys have been awesome and sort of like sharing stuff with me, like, hey, show this on your show and you know, reveal it on your show. And then we'll post it on social media. And so I love that they're
she? I don't know her. She's
they've just revealed it this week on Toy Migos. Like, she's sort of built on an Amazon goddess type character.
That's cool as shit.
But it's so cool that they're doing like, this is their women buck, and they talked all about like their approach to doing women figures and what they wanted to do. They didn't, you know, it's like they're talking about like He-Man and She-Ra. Here's He-Man, big giant powerful dude, and She-Ra, she's super powerful too, but looks a little bit different than He-Man. And so they kind of wanted to do like a muscle mommy kind of like, boom, give me a buff character. I was like, cool. And then what else?
It's also hot. Like, go ahead, take me away. Like, carry me away. Like, I'll be your little dude or whatever. And then I love that in Dungeons and Dragons where it's what's it, Michelle Rodriguez, and then Bradley Cooper was like the race of the little people or whatever.
Yep.
I'll be her Bradley Cooper, I guess.
Nice. And yeah, they shared a bunch of other stuff. There's going to be more to come, so keep looking for them. But again, the other thing I'll say is I'm obviously like a big fan and advocate for the smaller companies, because I'm like, you know, that's great. Hasbro's fine, Mattel's fine. He-Man and G.I. Joe, they're fine. Like, they're not going anywhere. But like, I'm thinking for the culture, for young people moving forward, or just geekdom in general, I think it's healthy to have new things. In this case, like I will say that they're like, the ability to pose like that and the way they're exploring it is fantastic, because they can. Mattel can't all of a sudden switch up this thing that they've invested in, and they're not as nimble. Like they're the people, you know, writing the checks. Yeah, the people writing the checks aren't going to go, yeah, let's go ahead and spend more money on something, even though you've established this tooling that's perfect. Like, or fine. So this pushes the game. Like, to me, this advances action figures in general as new companies develop new things, new innovations. And yeah, it's going to cause some people to say, Hasbro, get rid of the pins, or give me this hinge, or give me this whatever. Push it forward, right? So I'm excited about that stuff. I think we're showing people that the nostalgia for the old stuff and the excitement of the new stuff can live in harmony. Then there's Super 7, who literally, like, their business model is, remember that stuff you loved? We loved it too. There hasn't been enough of it. Let's give it to you, right? And so they tease this, and we'll go through this last one real quick, but they just revealed, I think it was just yesterday, maybe even today, what the wave was. And this is their latest wave with a Burble, with some Lunatacs, which is like a big deal because we have yet to have had the Lunatacs in action figure form. And then they're like going to like Lionel's father and some like Thunderian guard. So building out the world, giving us stuff that we simply couldn't have before. If you order directly from Super 7, pre-order from them directly, you get all these like extra goodies, which is
very clever. Very
I appreciate
smart, very
that.
savvy.
Yeah,
yes.
Like, good. You do that. You address people's concerns about, you know, I'm paying you $55, all that kind of cool. Here's a little extra something. Take it or leave it. Just to quickly show what's here. Cool Burbles, you know, and again, these are things that Thundercats fans have wanted for a long time. So yay that they're getting it. Like, that's fantastic. I'm like a picker and a chooser. I actually get some of these just because, like, oh, that looks cool, and I want to see that. Like, this is probably one I'll get because I think it's just so damn cool. We never got this guy. This is the father of Lionel. Close. We got him.
See, the bad spray tan was inherited for old Lionel. This guy kind of looks like somebody.
Who does he look like? Who do you think he looks like?
Somebody in the news.
The tan, sure.
The white blonde hair.
Yeah, totally. But this hair looks better.
And the suntan goggle eyes.
Especially this one. No, this one especially.
Right?
Yeah.
How is that not him?
Not so much this one, but this one. Oh man, Brian's not gonna like that. I hadn't thought about that. Good call.
The best Thundercats figure.
Yeah. And then, you know, building out the world, and especially since folks are like deeply pot invested because they probably got a ridiculously huge but awesome Cats Lair coming. And now you've got, like, you know, the people to build it out and stand around, and you got a guard there. I don't know if you had any quick thoughts on this.
You know, I bought the damn thing.
Are you going to need Thunderian guards to watch over the
Hopefully on clearance. I don't want to spend. I would love like 3. That's $170, almost $200. Probably do that. I can't do that, but yeah, I would love them. I really would.
But yeah, again, this is like giving us things. Yeah. Yes, it's the nostalgia, but it's things you never had. LJN didn't go this far.
No,
right?
Yeah.
The cartoon like barely went here, and now you're getting it.
There's nothing I love more than like, here is this unreleased figure, or here is this character we've never gotten. That's the stuff I love.
And so they're here. And everyone's super happy about it. No one's saying it's too expensive or Super 7. No one's saying any of that. No one's complaining about the articulation. Everybody's happy. Yay. Sorry. Let me live in that world for just a little bit.
Just sitting there for just a second.
But again, if you're like upset with this, or if maybe the articulation thing is your game, well, I got something for you. There's this line called Animal Warriors of the Kingdom, where if you really want like cats and hyenas and jackals and monkey people, you got them. So I got to do this because, again, old and new. And
oh wait, is this drink your Ovaltine? Was it a crummy commercial, Brick? No,
yep, it really was. Look, hey, we're talking to Adam right now, and there's my clone. But
that's
yeah,
a
just
classic
this
Brick Something face, by the way.
Yeah, the face thing is this just this weekend before you and I are recording this, both Adam and I kind of ran down the general release of them. I'll just say go check it out over there. Look at this image. But it's amazing to me that while we are getting Thundercats, anthropomorphic cats, right, with swords and laser guns, we also have this other place to get that kind of thing. Slightly better articulation, but it's not even just like, oh yeah, we got that one thing a while back. Like, no, we're getting a ton of stuff coming up in the next year or so in this order. I just wanted to go ahead and show folks some of this stuff we revealed on Sunday. Well, the Sunday, the 9th, I think, a couple of weeks before this thing's going to air, some of the packaging art, but we didn't take a look at some of the these illustrations where you can kind of see like, this very much draws on the spirit maybe of what Thundercats was, in the way that Operation Monster Force, I would argue, draws on that real Ghostbusters episode, or Universal Monsters, or even their G.I. Joe connections in new, exciting ways. For me as a collector who's like, yeah, I'll take that. This is
just I love because Jason does the color selection, right?
Yes.
I love his palettes.
That's what you're saying. Yep.
I love his palettes. And each one's unique, and each captures your imagination in a way that just like it's visually appealing. I feel like what sets AWOK apart is just the palettes are so good.
You know, Jay, that's your opinion. I think this line sucks and these things are ugly. But you know, we can live together. That's fine. No, I agree with you 100%. Again, we shared the box art the other day, but here's just some closer, nice, higher quality looks at the artwork. Shout out to Utama Prasta, who does the art based on Jason's concepts, and then Jason goes in doing the coloring. It's the same guy who does the comic book, which people really need to get into, because to me, that's the real Ghostbusters cartoon to this toy line. We showed this packaging art with all the stories, but that could be a Thundercat. And the nice thing, what I love about 2024 is they scale them in ways that they can work. They can totally work. This was a fun surprise, this sort of Ranger that we both Adam and I kind of forgot was coming. And it was like, oh yeah, no one ever talked about. We showed the box art. Again, brand new toy line, still like less than 2 years old. Lots of stuff coming. Look at this art. If you're unfamiliar, this is the color.
And Charlotte Hornets colors. It's just like, come on, let's go.
This is proven Jay's point about the pop of color. Again, I think this line is ugly. The designs are horrible. But hey, if you're into it,
they showed this guy, his figure at PowerCon, right? This is one of my favorites.
They did.
Because he has the articulated jaw.
Yeah, articulated. First with the articulated jaw, has a cool neck piece to kind of give it a different silhouette. This guy, again, Thundercats, this is the Claudus, if you will. He can hang out with Claudus. He can make fun of the way Claudus looks and why his skin is orange.
I was saying that exactly. This guy doesn't look like a felon.
30, how many? 30?
34?
So, yeah, 34.
I'm not talking about anybody specific. I'm just saying this one looks way cooler.
Right. We saw this, but again, just a ridiculous, awesome art. Like, this is giving me sort of that later 90s Joe Madureira kind of like almost anime style influence. And then you got your main character, right? A monkey, an ape, sorry, a chimp. Like, great art. And then if you're familiar with the toy themselves, and Jay was holding up some earlier, the actual sculpts, they look right there. He is. Yeah. In fact, that figure is this guy. They're re-releasing it in trans blue to make spectral pale.
Look at his personality. Look at his face. Just giving you a little look, you know, it's personality.
That figure came with that one head. This version, which is transparent, based on that same mold, is almost exactly that, except he's coming with an alt head, which we haven't revealed yet. And then this is the newer thing, the newer hotness that we didn't show, a completely alternate look. We kind of like forgot to talk about him for a while. And this is Necro Pale, Necro Armor Pale. You know, get a little bit of a haircut. You know, we grew up a little
undercut.
bit.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Here's the packaging, all to just say, like, man, I don't know. There's some great stuff out there. Again, the blend of the old, blend of the new. I think we can do it. I think we saved toys today, Jay. Like we calmed them all. Oh, too late.
Oh no, it's dead.
Swerve. It's done.
So much progress. It's toast.
No, I wanted to sort of just quickly end with this. We don't need to spend too much time because if you're watching this live, let's see, we're getting close to Toy Geeks time. So we should wrap it up ish, but you on Toy Geeks.
It's kind of cool. People are like, oh my God, you were just on this other show and now you're here. It's like, yeah.
And you
I'm
look
doing
refreshed. You don't look exhausted like you've been dreaming all day. So you talked about this when we recorded this. It would have been just the most recent Toy Geeks on Sunday night, and I got to catch a little bit of it. You and Mad Hatter went through it, and you kind of talked about your takes.
Yes.
Do you want to rehash whatever as briefly as you can, your take on it?
It's just one of those things. I have backed Star Wars HasLabs. I most recently backed the HasLab Ghost. Freaking so excited about that thing. And the only Star Wars I still collect is TVC. I'm not a diehard TVC guy by any stretch of the imagination. And I've been dying for a TVC playset, like a good TVC playset. So like I had all of these categories that you on paper you would say, oh cool, then you're going to be into this, right? But for me, this isn't even close to what I want. I don't think it's trying to be a playset. I don't think it's trying to pretend to be a playset. But just for what I would want out of a HasLab, it's just not hitting anything for me. At $3.99 or is it $3.99 and $4.99 at either price point, it's not hitting it for me. But I could see very well how toy photographers, whatever, probably love the hell out of this thing. But to me, if I am Joe Hasbro, captain president of Hasbro, and I'm trying to do one of these things, to me, you want to appeal to your hardcores, but then your casuals. And I feel like this was specifically marketed to the hardcores. By its price point, by its higher threshold to unlock it with that higher price point, and just like what's being presented. Because it's just not as broad a thing. Like, so if Hasbro does do the Ecto-1 for the HasLab, that's going to appeal to diehards. It's going to appeal to 6-inch scale collectors. It's going to appeal to people that bought Plasma Series. It's going to appeal to people that never bought any Plasma Series figures, haven't even bought anything Hasbro has done, but they love the Ecto-1 and they just want an Ecto-1 on their shelf. Like, it's going to go a lot further than just the diehard Ghostbusters. And I think we're seeing that with this so far, just in terms of the response. I think it'll get to 8,000, but it's just not going to be a more broadly successful thing, I think.
Right. It's not the rapid, completion of the campaign.
Day one.
Like day 3. What a day 1? Sure. But it's not a whatever. It's not a Ghostbusters.
The G.I. Joe's been able to be like, okay, they're capturing things beyond just your hardcore people. They're getting 30,000, pushing 30,000 people or what have you.
See, I have a couple of different takes. There's a bunch of things that you said there that have sparked thoughts, and I watched the episode, and I had a different take. I was in the live chat kind of offering things, and you were addressing them. Yeah. And that's fine. And by the way, so I didn't agree with Jay, and I still don't agree with Jay, but I'm still talking to Jay, and everything is just fine.
We're still friends.
I want to stress that. I want to emphasize that because sometimes y'all you got to grow up. But a couple of things. The more recent thought, as you said, G.I. Joe. I feel like G.I. Joe fans are hungry in a way that is not comparable to where Star Wars fans are.
Ooh, that's a good point.
I think Star Wars fans are hungry in general, but as you and I have established when I was on Toy Geeks, that the Star Wars fandom is in a very funky place. And then the Star Wars collector space, I think, follows suit.
Yes.
And we are obviously in this larger cultural moment where people can't just leave and let people enjoy. Right. So they're chiming in even when they have no intention of buying a thing, or they just can't help but poo on a thing. So I think the G.I. Joe fans are hungry in a way that Star Wars aren't, because Star Wars fans and
have been eating since 95.
Yes. And even well before that, they were the first they initiated the buffet of collectibles, right?
Absolutely.
They basically created the space where
they invented it.
Yeah.
Wholesale.
There's this product, and now we're going to sell you everything. And people bought. And
Mhm.
so they're in this funny place where you're almost like, what haven't I seen already?
Mhm.
And on top of that, we have been continuing more recently since 2015, the storytelling and all that with mixed results as far as like audience perception or whatever, put it that way. So now you've got all sorts of places to choose from, whether it's I want to stick in the OT, I want to stick to this. Not only that, we've talked about this before. I do 3.75. I have my Kenners and my Power of the Force. Oh, but then there's Black Series. So it's like all over the place.
Yeah.
In addition, you mentioned the play sets. It's like you mentioned like photographers might enjoy this. It's more of a diorama. I don't think you said that tonight, but that's what you kind of implied by saying it's not a play set, right? Like it leans more towards something like a diorama than what you would consider play set.
Yeah.
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 So again, I think the way people play with their collectibles or enjoy their collectibles is also in this just diverse space. Like there's all sorts of folks. So I don't even know what a diehard is anymore. Because is it a diehard OT person? Is it a diehard collector who has to just collect everything? Is it a diehard 3.75 fan? I just feel like there's all these things. Then you go to the G.I. Joe place to finish that thought. We don't have nearly the same diverse offerings at a consistent rate. So in many ways, they're just like the idea of getting something G.I. Joe.
You're the only game in town. Yeah.
And it's also pretty relatively fresh, right? You're like, oh, I've never seen that giant
exactly. Yeah.
dragonfly before. Cool. Right.
Yes.
It was to the place where they were able to, again, maybe not as quickly and as, guaranteed as backing some of their other items, but they sold us a 3.75 Sky Striker. And I remember scratching my head. It's like, are people really going to still need that when like many of them have a 3.75 Sky Striker? But they did.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like they're in a different place.
By that one. That wasn't a huge success.
Yeah.
Out of all those ones that dropped, the Proton Pack was the most successful. Rancor didn't make it.
Nope.
Sky Striker benefited from the Rancor not making it, I think, and kind of it boosted that last day. There
was some funny stuff with Unicron too. Yeah.
Right. Unicron they extended so that it could get through.
Yep.
I kind of wish I got the Unicron, but that's a whole other story.
But so like, I think it's hard to compare, right? G.I. Joe and say Star Wars for those reasons. I think on the question of a playset, I hear you. Like I want the action features too, but again, I think that speaks to a particular type of collector. Or maybe it's not action features. What is it?
But light stuff is fine, but just to me, a playset is giving a sense of space. And for whatever reason, and people have been like, oh, it needs a floor or whatever. That's fine. Yeah. But this just feels like a skeleton of a space versus a space. And maybe just a few little touches could have gotten it there for me, but just like the openness of it, and to the bar especially, just kind of being like, this is unfinished. Like I'm missing a piece from this bar. And
when you say that, you mean mainly like when it's in this configuration where it's floating and the top. Yeah, you were mentioning the top. And
it just doesn't give me a sense of space the same way. To your point, I think you brought it up in the chat, like the Star Destroyer, right? Is spacey as hell. Like no way it looks like a star, but just I don't know, somehow it captured it better, and it's probably the stretchiest of stretches. But like Death Star definitely felt more like a sense of space versus this.
Yeah,
and I don't know how to quantify
unsure.
that.
Yeah, I'm unsure about, like, I don't agree with that, and I'm unsure of how, except for like it feels complete when it's all connected, for sure. Like if it had a floor tying it all together, that might actually concretely make it
like a floor, and then do some of the domes, the outside domes or something. And then I'm like,
or
okay,
at the very least, like this stuff, why unfinished? Like I get that, like make it finished. Same with the roof or whatever these are.
Just do a little. Like a little cover on it, and then just
don't show me the inside of the mold. I get it.
Exactly.
I'm with you on that.
Feels cheap to me.
I'm with you on that. And I think it's like, as a creative person myself who's been involved in like, team projects where there's production and all sorts of considerations, I can only imagine, and maybe it's too triggering for me to hear people like chime in who literally like have very little experience with this stuff saying just some off things. Like I've heard people say, oh, I'm just going to print it. Like I'll just do it that way. And I'm just like, do you actually realize how much time that's going to take? And if you value your time, like that, again, it goes to that place of non-logic.
Yeah.
But I will just say that I know for a fact that there are people who are Star Wars fans and collectors who are backing this and who are also like, I've always wanted a cantina. Like I go back to like this,
but even that cardboard gives me a roof.
It gives you
and a floor. It has a roof and a floor, Brick.
A 3 or 4 inch picture of maybe a bad drawing.
This is all stupid logic. I totally agree.
Yes,
but that just feels like a greater sense of space as a floor.
I don't know. We will disagree on that because, like, what space is this implying, man? It's like sure, granted, it's a floor. It's also a floor that is very similar. I'm trying to remember. Is this? Oh no, it's not. It's not a reused.
It's cardboard, isn't it? I think
you're right. Sorry, it's the next one.
It's the. So it's the reuse of Butch Cassidy, or was Butch Cassidy reused it after Star Wars? But anyway,
this was straight up art and crafts. We drew a pretty painting. It's like the movies. It's a matte painting, and it's like, and they even had to like paint a stormtrooper, which I just like bad idea. Just
but you know what? We got blue Snaggletooth because of that set.
Yes,
little blue snaggle.
Oh, you know what? Sorry, an aside. I guess we did have this because we have that blue Snaggletooth.
That's where blue Snaggle.
I just don't remember the cardboard. I don't remember this cardboard thing, whatever. This cardboard space, if you will. But then we got this, like they tried to kind of correct it. And again, it's like the implication of a space rather than an actual space. And so
you know what? It's got a floor.
I hear you, but I guess where I was going, and I think I said this in the chat that day, it's like MOTU very much so was like you had a concept of what a MOTU playset was. It was a defined thing when you closed it.
You're right.
And then when you opened it, you played with it. But that was really truly a MOTU thing. If you're again, the hardcore collector, I get if we're looking at it through a particular lens. I'm going to look at the lens of an old person like myself who grew up with Kenner toys, and then everything a little bit after that. We never actually got anything that was truly the kind of playset that I think you're looking for.
Oh, absolutely. You're 100%. The only one that I think comes close is Ewok Village a little bit. Even that's
fair enough. You're right.
Spacious.
You're right.
But yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's the one. But beside that, like it's all been like movie magic implying space or a piece
for the
of
playsets.
it.
Yes.
Yeah. But like, this is what we had. And so to think like those were your options back in the day, and then we're getting to this. I just want to throw this out there. And maybe I'm making
counterpoint that though.
Go for it.
What were those sets like? $10, $20, adjusted for inflation, maybe $40.
Sure. But this they're not approaching this. Though.
$400 to $500.
Fair. My counterpoint.
Okay.
How much was the Ghost?
$500. I don't know. What was it? Was it 500?
It was 500. And I had to remind you of that on Toy Geeks. And you're like, was it 500? And you paused for a second.
But but somehow
you seemingly genuinely perplexed that that was how much you spent.
But I felt like, hell yeah, I'm in. Let's go. I don't give a crap. Let's go.
To some of the points you said earlier, to your head, that was $500. That's well spent. This, no, $500.
It's too spacious. It's unfinished.
You getting a Cat's Lair?
Yeah. $650.
How much? What were the other ones recently? Mother
Eternia, $550.
Yeah, Eternia, right? To a hardcore MOTU fan, seeing that Eternia was like, okay, I'm going to pay $650 for that thing that, none of them survived, or my parents never got me that. So like here, $650, easy.
But also you had if I want a vintage one, that's $3,000,
True.
So it's like, well, crap, I could get this for $550, right? And then Thundercats Lair, like there's nothing like that.
That's just.
I think Ghost.
I would
never had a Ghost before, so and it's huge.
Sure.
Yes,
This I will say, like I think there's a little bit of that in that we've never had. I mean, fair. We had this, and we had this,
which had floors and roofs.
I'm sorry. You can have this floor and you can go play with your floor. I'd much rather have this bar set and this, like the level of detail and all that. Granted, I agree with you. Would it have been better if it maybe had more of a defined space visually and maybe closed some of these weird gaps where we kind of see the, sure, I would agree with that. But for what it is, $500. I just struggle with some of the reactions with price, just because I'm even thinking of just materials, time, the detail, the research that went into this, like everything, like all these tiny pieces. This is not one giant, like, you know, like, I don't know how many pieces are in this, but I would wager that it's way more pieces that come with this thing than some of these other, like the Eternia. The other thing I'll say, these figures, was there like 3 of them and then potentially another 3?
I think you get Tonica sisters and the bar guy, and then potentially Greedo, Wolfman, and this guy.
So that's like 6 figures, couple of them like this one that we've never gotten before.
You're right.
Yeah. Actually,
I don't think we have. I don't think we have.
Like, how much are these TVC? That blows me away, how much a TVC figure is today.
I know.
But, and yet, Star Wars fans, I'm sure some people are like, why am I going to pay $25 for this thing? But a lot of them are like, yeah, 25, cool, let me grab it. When they know they can go get a Black Series that's larger with, frankly, a little bit more detail and all that. For what? 30 some dollars? To me, I'm going like, you're paying $25 for that? Like, to me, because I haven't been buying Star Wars. But on the other hand, that's just kind of like normal for people.
Yeah.
So put that in, you got 6 figures. What is that? $150. Knock that off of your 400, or if you're going deluxe, 500. I know, whatever, that floor is really valuable, but
it's not the floor. It's so small.
I know, it's a space.
It's just
not trying to convince you, just point.
No, to me, I get it. I totally get it. I really do. Yeah. It's just, this is just my opinion. So like, I'm one toy collector.
Right.
But I think I have a history of buying these things stupidly. So, and I'm not buying this thing. So I think it's just like, that's like, if I'm a demographic of customer that Hasbro counts on, this didn't get me.
Right. There's also something to be said about, and I think you're,
and I love it. I want the Tonica sisters. I want these figures.
I don't want to spend
$500.
Huge. Well, you're not, though, because you're getting a floorless implication of a space as well. Which, again, par for the course as far as what Star Wars.
There's no. Listen, I see a lot of floor. Sweet 70s orange floor.
Oh, and actually, you know what? We talked about this.
See that the leg? That just do that. This is perfect.
But again, when you open it up, it's this, which
it's
to me
practically
is
the same thing. But you have the roof.
Exactly.
It's just, you just gave it a greater sense of space, I guess is my thing. It's just a few extra steps. It's not doing that much more, but that just, to me, is that last little piece that it needs.
It's not perfect. Maybe folks are of the opinion it's not even good. I think it's, to me, beyond good, but I understand its limitations. And I just look at the marketplace. The price argument doesn't hit me in the same way. If we're subtracting the piece of like, no, I don't want to spend for that. Like, I get it. There's that emotional piece of price, but it just, in terms of what it comes with, I see the value. I don't, by no means would I go like, the value is not there. It's there. It just might not be in the form that folks want.
Sure.
But I wanted the opportunity to respond to that, but also just like, this is the conversation tonight, right? Star Wars started it all. The insane buying habits and collecting habits.
None of this happens without Star Wars.
I also do wonder what happens in 2024 moving forward. Not at all trying to like predict the end of collecting or anything, but it is kind of a weird thing when Star Wars, of all things, can drop something from the original trilogy that is totally like this key scene, and people have such mixed reactions to it. And in some cases, like absolute, like angry hate, which I don't think is in the main. I think generally people are disappointed and critical in a mostly fair way. But it does make me wonder how much of that is just because people are burned. I also wonder if we're in this moment where fans feel so much ownership over a thing, and there's a level of demand and entitlement where it's like, this is not what I expected, which I get. But then the next piece of that is like, are you going to ever get what you expect? And if this is your shot to get it, is the thinking that if I pass on this, someday we might get a better one?
I wouldn't count on that.
Right. So it's just kind of this weird
if
thing,
you want
especially if you're a Star Wars fan. Yeah.
I do come back to like, just Star Wars had a 10-year break, 85 to 95, give or take, And since then, since 1995, so nearly 30 years, it's been a constant barrage of Star Wars merchandise, new movies, and now movie or TV shows. And I just think, you know what? It's due for a break. So we're oversaturated on it. And I just think it would do good for it to have a little break. And that's okay. Like I feel like Marvel, Endgame was such a credible movie moment. Like one of my favorite in theater experiences I've ever had has been watching Endgame in a packed house opening night. And you've kept putting out movies. It's like, God, this was such a high. Like I just need, I don't know, a few years before we get back to adventures again. I can't just go right back into it. Adventures, you know. Like I think we've lost that element of you need space between things sometimes, story wise and collecting wise.
It's true. I like the idea, and we also know that the challenges of it, of just
we have like
the way the business
we got to
works.
sell and we got to make money every quarter,
and we're gonna
be happy,
right? And the fear that like, oh no, we're paying for all this stuff along the way.
Absolutely,
like, you know, we're already paying for this license. It's not like we get to pause and then they don't court somebody else to make Star Wars toys. Like we don't want that.
That's the rub.
Especially for the movies, right? You can't really take a break if you're trying to secure talent and like, But I will say
you're seeing this burnout across the board. Movies that should theoretically do really well aren't doing well. Like so many things on paper that should do well of that engine of having to continually put out product every quarter to show earnings to please shareholders. Like creativity doesn't play to that. You can only churn that hurdy-gurdy machine or that meat grinder until eventually there's just nothing left.
Well, yeah, I guess people probably need a break from some of those brands, and you know, if only there was like a place
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Go into that
something else.
But that's what I think happens, right? Or it's like for Star Wars, it's just like I'm just gonna go vintage. You know, it's more fun to do that.
That too.
Taste a different high.
Thank you for that reminder, because like at the end of the day, like I don't understand the people who get upset or are frustrated, because at the end of the day, you're bummed with whatever's happening now. You're like, no, that AWOK thing is a cheap Thundercats rip. I hate that. I hate the operate. Fine.
Does anybody say that though?
But no, if they did,
okay,
you still have the option to do exactly what you said. Then go start a new nostalgic collection. Go get all the vintage stuff. It's there. It's just waiting for you. Then we can all maybe just talk about how fun toys are in general. And maybe we'll get the newer, better stuff that you want as a result. And rather than like, I just feel like there's a lot of tearing down right now. And that's what I worry about. This is a thing where people are like, nah, I don't mess with that Star Wars. It's just too chaotic. I'm not even going to watch that new thing. I already know people are upset about it, whatever. And it's just like, man, I don't want that. Because like, Star Wars is good. Thundercats is good. He-Man is good. G.I. Joe is good. Transformers, right? That almost happened because of the Michael Bay stuff. It's like, no, Transformers is great. So back to nostalgia, Geek.Dad.Life. I know you said it from the beginning. So much of what you do is because of those like different moments in your life, those touchstones of that clear emotional memory, that good feeling of that moment. So I'm just hoping that we can continue to have those good feelings with like people after me, my kids, your kids, other folks, instead of people going like, oh man, I hate that toy stuff. That's what my dad used to fight about on the internet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, why do you want that to be your thing? You know? And because I went to did Ghostbusters Day. It was a family trip. Everybody went out to New York City, and
beautiful.
And God, there was just
beautiful.
And I'm not the type of parent who's like, we're a Ghostbuster household, and you're gonna like Ghostbusters, all right?
Right.
No, it's just like, and again, I understand they like it because, you know, daddy likes it to have all this stuff around. And it's like, oh, that's cool. I like that. But you know, for them, like doing that premiere in March and like, oh, we want to do that. It's like, oh, cool. We're doing another thing. And we could go up and do that. And organically just them just seeing those cars pull up and just like mind blown and just like having really, you know, a special family bonding time around this property that I love. That to me is way greater than O-ring Ghostbusters.
That's beautiful, Leah. And so
right. And that's the Geek.Dad.Life right there. There it is.
Allow me to share that I'm in a very similar place. Me every Tuesday, 6 p.m. It's me and the whole family, but especially my oldest. That's our thing. It's like we'll sit and watch any new Star Wars, and that he's all about it right there with me. And then my younger son, it's like anything new Zelda, we're all about it. And that's, I don't know, that it's beautiful. And it bums me out when people feel like they're kind of trying to tear a thing down and just
like, what is that doing? Whatever.
Yeah.
Do you feel
that
better?
Said,
like, who hurt you as a child? All right.
Show me where. No. Let's wrap this up. It is now. Yeah, we're good. Like you've probably got about a good 20-minute break to go get a snack or whatever after this premieres for you to go watch.
I need a pee break before Toy Geeks later.
Before he, in different clothes too. He's going to go change clothes and everything.
No, I'll make sure continuity. I'll make sure I wash these clothes. And it's the same thing for that one.
Before we go, you are doing a new thing, and it's a new old thing that I've been loving. Talk about nostalgia in a beautiful way. You have revived the audio only podcast, going back to your roots, your podcasting roots, and you're doing it with one of my favorite people, Dan Larson, who it brings so much beautiful content to this world. The two of you are going through different toy lines year by year, and right now you're at least as of recording. I don't know if you'll be done by the time.
When will this episode air?
June 30th.
Okay, so I think our finale for Masters will be the Tuesday after this Sunday, I believe. Yeah.
So for folks who don't know, right now you can watch on Sunday nights, 6 p.m. Eastern, the live stream on YouTube version of Toy Geeks. But then every Tuesday morning is when the new episodes come out for the podcast.
For Toy Geeks Pod. And I think eventually I'll just have Toy Geeks be the podcast and Geek.Dad.Life will just be the live streams. But it's a transitionary period. I don't know. I don't know what to say that, but
branding.
Yeah, exactly. But like it's been an idea in my mind for a long time, back even when John was on. But then, John, rightfully so, his dream is to have that shop, and that's his thing he's doing right now.
Beautiful.
And I was so fortunate when I think it was talking about it in an After Dark or something. And then Dan Larson himself, he wanted to do a podcast, but he didn't want to have to like do, he has his own things. He just want to kind of just be a person on it, not have to be the person running it or whatever.
I remember that moment.
And so just following up with them, but the idea in my head was the podcast allows you to just spend more time and not having to think about algorithms or tapping into a zeitgeist moment or whatever. It can just be whatever thing we want to talk about and be able to spend enough time and really dive into it, and then bring guests on, like cool guests that I've never gotten to talk to before. It's been cooler than even I think I thought it was gonna be, just because some of the stories that have come out of it, and just kind of like diving into things where it's like toy trauma or just like how we played with toys or collected toys. Our most recent episode, at least as of this recording, was with Nate Barch, and even in that episode, I brought up how just as a kid, like trading for toys, like, cause I didn't have a lot of money growing up, but so if I wanted a toy, I didn't have money to get a toy. So it was like, okay, can I trade enough things to get that thing that my friend has that I really, really want?
Nice.
And then Nate was just like, well, no, I think our family parents just made sure everybody had different toys, so we all had to play together. And then Dan Larson was like, no, all our friends, we would just steal each other's toys. And like, if it was a sleepover, you had to like, keep one eye open to see if someone's going to steal your action figure or whatever. But it's just like stuff like that. We're just kind of tapping into just things from our youth and how we connect to these properties and live through these things. And so anyways, Masters has been a lot of fun. I made one of the smartest decisions ever in hiring Allison Troy to be our researcher. I had a list of people. She was my first person to ask, and thank God she said yes. Because she's done an amazing job to make sure
she's
brilliant what we're talking about. Or if it's like, was that a thing? It's like, oh yeah, this was the story, blah blah blah. Like she's done a really good job.
And it comes up every single time. You're like, okay, well, this is what we got in the research, and it's great. It's clearly like a central point of a part of the podcast. Nate's great. I remember even you had a moment where there was like I don't like Revolution. Was it Etok?
Yeah, James Etok. Yeah.
But it was fine. Again, it's possible for someone who doesn't like MOTU Revelation and people who do, and like the world didn't end, folks. Exactly. And they just had a conversation and it was fun. And it was like, it ended with like, yeah, we love MOTU. Great.
Well, it's that separation of, you don't like it because you don't like it, and then just bad faith arguments, right?
Yeah,
that's the line, right? Like,
Yep.
it's just like, you could not like a thing, absolutely.
You had
But it was
Pixel
like-
Dan on there too.
Pixel Dan was great. That was my first time
Everything.
really just chilling with him, and
Okay.
it was awesome. And then Jay from Purple Stuff Podcast, and then the person who he co-hosts with is the person I probably have followed on the internet the longest, Matt from Dinosaur Dracula. Before that was X Entertainment. Like, he was tapping into this stuff, 20, 30, almost 30 years ago. So anyway, so it's been cool to kind of have these conversations. And...
Yeah, like as you said, you can go in depth in a very different way than we get you to do with Sunday nights on the YouTube channel. Do you want to maybe preview what some of the other lines you might be looking at?
Anything.
Or want to?
There's a list of toy lines, and I don't know. It goes on and on. We actually haven't finalized what the next series is going to be. I think there's a couple front runners. If you think big tent poles like G.I. Joe, Transformers, G1, Ninja Turtles, like, we're not going back to back on those. I want to try and get into some like little deeper cuts and like other kind of stuff. Because my hope is, this is something, or at least that's the other part of it too, is doing a podcast is like, how long can you make a show go kind of thing if you're tapping into this type of content. And so spreading it out, going year by year, is better than, okay, this episode we're talking about Masters of the Universe. Boom, that's one episode out of potentially 52 in a year. What are we going to do next? Get a little more length out of this. But whatever we pick for the next series will be, I think, a deeper cut, but still one that I'm really excited to talk about.
I like that. I like that you space it out and you're going to bounce back and forth. And again, it's you and Dan Larson.
Yeah,
so
Dan
it's
Larson,
like you guys are going to be doing the commentary on. It's going to be great. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it.
He's really funny in these.
He's really funny and knows his stuff for sure.
He knows his stuff, but he has these one-liners that are just like, yeah, that was really good.
And it's there's always a personal story. I love it. I love hearing about like, oh, I learned about this while my parents were stationed here or whatever it is. Like,
exactly.
And you do the same thing. So it's a great listen. Check it out. You've also got, I know for folks maybe are less familiar, there's a second channel, GDL2, where you generally have done but you've done like when you're trying to like, skirt the rigidness of the algorithm, you're doing like screen stuff, like entertainment based stuff.
Like a Skunkworks or kind of like, Side Lab or something.
Nice. That's great stuff, man. I appreciate what you do. I appreciate what you do for the community as far as just, again, trying to keep it positive, but actually have real conversations. Yeah, man, this was great. Again, this is going to be showing up, but when it does and it premieres, if you're watching it live, I think now you've got maybe 15 minutes or so. So hurry up. Go get your drink, go get your popcorn, get ready for Jay over on the Geek.Dad.Life channel. It's
going to be crazy.
Yep. And again, if you want to look at the links, they're all down there to the stuff that we looked at. Jay, once again, thank you, man. I'm glad that you were able to come through the Brick Something channel.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. It was a blast. Okay, folks, I think I'm supposed to tell you to click like and subscribe and the little bell and do all those things. What's that one? Is that one I'm missing? Anything? No,
I'd say yes. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon.
Okay. Yeah. Learning from the pros.
You did it.
All right, folks. Thank you very much. I hope everyone has
comment.
A good weekend.
If you hated any of our takes, say why you hated it, or if you loved it, say why you loved it. Comments are good too. There you go.
Yeah, do that. Do all of those things. And let's see. By the time it'll air June 30th, I think there's a couple of more pre-records. I think next week we'll be meeting someone from my life in real life who doesn't have a YouTube thing. So I've kind of coerced my real life nerd friends to do this. So that'll be fun. And then I'll be back after that. All right. Anyways, everybody have a good night. Go watch Geek.Dad.Life. And thank you once again, Jay. Bye-bye. Oh, yeah, sorry. Life. All right. I'm Brick Something. Peace, power, all those things. Bye-bye, everybody.